House. I do want to bring in Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie. Good afternoon, Congressman. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Greta. Thanks for having me on.
This morning, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi formally instructed the Judiciary Committee to move forward on articles of impeachment. What happens now in this process?
Well, you know, their hearing was an unmitigated disaster. The bias of their witnesses was shown, and so she wants to get this over with as quickly as possible. The only question for us here in Congress, and even Steny Hoyer doesn't know, he's the floor leader, is whether the vote's going to be next week or the week after that. They have to draft articles of impeachment in Judiciary. I presume that's going to be a unanimous vote, but when this gets to the floor, Pelosi, who's been reluctant to really even do the impeachment, she has to whip this thing. She has to try to lose as few members as possible to get this across the finish line so it doesn't look like the disaster that it is for them.
And you mentioned that vote being brought to the floor. When that does happen, can we expect, of course, all Republicans to stand united with the president? And what Democrats do you think might leave the side of Nancy Pelosi on this issue?
Well, I think there were a lot of Republicans who are in the camp of persuadable. But this hearing has not persuaded those Republicans. On the motion to proceed, we did not lose a single Republican vote, and I think we're going to maintain that solidarity going through this, again, on the issues of the case, not just because of partisanship. If it were partisan, then there wouldn't be Democrats voting with us. They will lose some Democrats. I can't tell you which ones they're going to lose, but I predict they're going to lose more than they lost on the motion to proceed.
Congressman, impeachment is, of course, the main focus for the majority in the lower chamber right now, but several other issues remain up in the air there, government funding being one of those. Congress did pass yet another CR to avoid a shutdown in November. Now we're facing another deadline on December 20th to approve funding or kick the can down the road again. What do you see happening in regard to a spending package amid the impeachment effort?
Well, this is one of the reasons they have to get impeachment done. Can you imagine if there's a shutdown because government didn't get funded because the Democrats were focused on impeachment? That would be a huge disaster for the Democrats. So that's one of the reasons they have to have this impeachment vote before the December 20th deadline on the funding. Now, I'm blaming Republicans and Democrats both for kicking the can this far down the road. The deadline was September 30th. They kicked the can to November. Now they've kicked it to December 20th. We've been told not to buy our plane tickets home anytime soon on December 20th because I think it'll go right to the deadline. And I'm worried we're not going to get the text of the bill until just a few hours before we have to vote on it. I'm wondering what they're going to hide in the bill. I'm not a big fan of CRs and omnibus bills, if you can't tell. But, you know, I think it will pass.
If it passes Congress, President Trump, when he signed the last CR, said that he was being forced to sign that to avoid a government shutdown as he slammed Democrats for focusing on impeachment. Could we see the president refuse to sign a CR and shut down the government to make a point for Democrats?
Well, I doubt the president will veto this bill. I think he's going to sign it because here's the irony. Even though the Democrats are screaming abuse of power, they're going to fund everything that the president has been doing and will be doing. Like, I predict the Democrats won't even cut a penny from the executive branch. That's just their nature. They're so in love with spending. And the president's probably going to sign that. He knows this probably isn't the time and place to fight this. And because the Democrats put all these bills in one instead of having 12 separate bills, that's the choice they present him with. Do you shut down the government or do you fund all of the government? I think the president should push back on Congress and say, send me 12 separate bills like your rules say you're supposed to do. And that way the president would have more discretion.
All right, Representative Thomas Massie there live from Capitol Hill with the latest on the impeachment inquiry as Democrats do work toward articles of impeachment. Thanks again for joining us, Congressman.
Thanks, Greta.